Have you ever been talking to a woman, feeling like things were going well, and then suddenly she disappears? No explanation, no goodbye, no warning, just silence. One moment she's engaged, laughing at your jokes, making plans, and the next moment, nothing. It feels confusing, frustrating, and even humiliating. You start replaying every text, every conversation, every interaction in your head, trying to figure out what went wrong. But here's the thing, ghosting is rarely about you personally. It's almost always about her psychology, her emotional state, and patterns she may not even realize she's following. Welcome to the channel. If you've been ghosted, felt confused, or wondered why women suddenly lose interest, you're in the right place. Today, we're going to break down the psychological reasons women ghost men and the solutions that help prevent it. This isn't about manipulation or tricks. It's about understanding human behavior, maintaining your value, and keeping attraction alive. Many men immediately assume ghosting is a sign of rejection or that they did something wrong. While sometimes behavior matters, more often than not, it's a combination of internal factors on her side: emotions, timing, attachment style, or even a lack of challenge or intrigue. Understanding these patterns gives you clarity, stops the endless second guessing, and positions you to protect your energy while remaining magnetic. Ghosting also happens when a man becomes predictable, emotionally dependent, or overly available. Women are wired to respond to energy, confidence, and mystery. When these elements fade, attraction can disappear, and ghosting becomes a convenient way for her to exit without conflict. It's not personal. It's her way of resolving emotional discomfort without confrontation. In this video, we'll cover 7 key psychological patterns that lead women to ghost men. From emotional overwhelm to timing, attraction loss, lack of challenge, overdependence, mismatched values, and fading mystery, you'll learn the underlying reasons and actionable steps to prevent them. Each section is designed to give you practical insight so you can maintain control over your energy, attract consistently, and understand the subtle cues before it's too late. Stick with me, because by the end of this video, you'll not only understand why ghosting happens, but also how to maintain attraction, protect your value, and prevent women from disappearing in the first place. Ghosting isn't mysterious. Once you know the psychology behind it, it becomes predictable, manageable, and avoidable. 1. Emotional overwhelm. Have you ever noticed that a woman can seem highly engaged one day and distant the next? One of the most common reasons she ghosts is emotional overwhelm. When a woman feels that the intensity of her emotions, whether excitement, pressure, or anxiety, exceeds her capacity to manage them, disappearing becomes her way of regaining control. This has little to do with you personally. It's about her internal state and coping mechanisms. Emotional overwhelm often occurs when a man moves too fast, shares too much, or invests heavily before the relationship has a stable rhythm. Over-communicating, excessive texting, or insisting on frequent attention can unintentionally trigger stress. Women are wired to pick up on subtle energy cues, and when she feels suffocated or pressured, she may withdraw entirely, sometimes without explanation. Ghosting becomes a self-protective strategy to avoid conflict or emotional discomfort. Another factor is intensity in emotional expression. Men who react impulsively, display volatility, or seek constant validation create a high-stakes environment for women. The unpredictability of emotional energy can make her feel unsafe or exhausted. When attraction is mixed with emotional anxiety, she may retreat to preserve her own well-being. The withdrawal might feel sudden, but it is often a gradual buildup of unresolved tension. The solution lies in controlling your own emotional output and managing pacing. Maintain calm composure, avoid overinvesting early, and allow the relationship to develop organically. Giving her space to process emotions without pressure demonstrates emotional intelligence and reduces the risk of overwhelm. A man who can regulate his energy signals stability and reliability, which are magnetic qualities. Stoic principles reinforce this approach. Focus on what you can control, your actions, energy, and reactions, rather than her responses. Detachment from outcomes doesn't mean indifference. It means you maintain consistent energy regardless of her emotional fluctuations. Women are naturally drawn to men who create a stable environment because it feels safe, predictable, and engaging. Physical and verbal presence also matters. Avoid excessive availability, constant reassurance, or over-communicating feelings. Instead, engage with deliberate energy, measured responses, and clear boundaries. This allows her to participate without feeling emotionally cornered. Emotional space encourages curiosity, investment, and sustained attraction. Finally, recognize the signs early. Subtle withdrawal, delayed responses, or decreased engagement often precede ghosting. By observing these cues and responding with composure, you reduce the chance of her feeling overwhelmed. The key is balance. Be present, engaged, and attentive, but never overbearing. Mastering emotional pacing creates a foundation for consistent attraction. Women invest in men who are steady, confident, and emotionally controlled. Emotional overwhelm is a psychological reason for ghosting that can be prevented with composure, patience, and awareness. When you manage energy correctly, you maintain attraction, prevent withdrawal, and foster long-term engagement. 2. Loss of attraction. Have you ever been talking to a woman, feeling that everything was going well, and suddenly her energy changes? One of the most common psychological reasons for ghosting is a simple yet brutal truth. She loses attraction. And it's often not because of one dramatic mistake. You can be a good guy, but because subtle patterns slowly reduce her interest. Attraction is not only physical, it's deeply tied to energy, confidence, and perceived value. Women are wired to respond to men who exude stability, independence, and self-possession. When these qualities fade, or when a man begins to prioritize her validation over his own life, attraction diminishes. This doesn't happen overnight, but over time, small behaviors like overavailability, lack of assertiveness, or constant reassurance signal low value. Subconsciously, she begins to disengage, and ghosting becomes a convenient exit. Loss of attraction can also occur when a man becomes predictable or loses mystery. Early intrigue and tension are crucial in maintaining interest. When a man reveals everything too soon, constantly gives attention without reciprocation, or fails to maintain personal goals and passions, he loses the magnetic pull that initially sparked interest. Women are drawn to men who have a full life, take initiative, and challenge them mentally and emotionally. Without these dynamics, engagement drops and ghosting often follows. Another factor is emotional inconsistency. Women naturally invest in men whose energy feels reliable. Emotional volatility, overreaction, or dependency signals that her investment may not be safe. This subtle erosion of trust and attraction can make her feel the safest way to preserve herself is to disappear. Ghosting becomes a protective mechanism, not a judgment of your worth. The solution is simple but powerful. Maintain self-value, cultivate independence, and prioritize personal growth. Continue to invest in your goals, hobbies, and social life. Engage with her intentionally but without desperation. Keep a sense of mystery alive by pacing self-disclosure, allowing her to discover your life gradually, and maintaining confidence in your own purpose. These behaviors maintain attraction over time because they communicate strength, stability, and value. Stoicism reinforces this principle. Focus on controlling your own actions, energy, and personal growth rather than trying to control or predict her feelings. Women are instinctively drawn to men who operate from inner certainty and composure. When attraction is sustained by your own energy and independence, ghosting becomes far less likely. Finally, recognize subtle signs of declining attraction, reduced engagement, minimal eye contact, delayed responses, or lack of initiative. Address these early by maintaining your composure, reaffirming your value through action rather than words, and ensuring your energy remains magnetic. Loss of attraction is often preventable when you understand the psychology behind it and act deliberately to sustain engagement. 3. Lack of challenge. Have you ever noticed that when a man becomes too easy to read, too agreeable, or too predictable, a woman slowly pulls away? One psychological reason women ghost is a lack of challenge. Attraction thrives on tension, curiosity, and effort. When these elements disappear, engagement drops, and ghosting becomes a convenient exit. Challenge doesn't mean playing games or being manipulative. It's about maintaining your value, boundaries, and energy in a way that encourages her to invest and engage. When a man agrees to everything, over-prioritizes her needs, or avoids asserting his opinions, he becomes predictable. This predictability reduces excitement and diminishes the subtle tension that keeps attraction alive. Women are wired to respond to men who are a mix of stability and unpredictability, confidence, and assertiveness. When the balance tips toward complacency, Interest fades. Intellectual and emotional challenge matters as well, as conversations that lack depth, engagement, or stimulation can make interactions feel dull over time. A man who doesn't inspire curiosity, demonstrate independence, or assert his perspective loses the dynamic energy that fosters attraction. When a woman senses that she no longer has to engage, persuade, or invest to gain attention or respect, her psychological investment decreases. Ghosting becomes an effortless way to disengage. Physical and behavioral challenge contributes too. Men who fail to maintain boundaries, personal growth, or social presence reduce their own perceived value. Women are drawn to men who live full, active lives, pursue goals, and engage confidently in their world. If a man allows himself to be fully consumed by her attention, she may subconsciously feel that there is no challenge left, and attraction can fade quietly. The solution is to cultivate balance, maintain boundaries, protect your energy, and assert yourself respectfully. Be intentional in your availability, engagement, and responses. Encourage her to invest emotionally, intellectually, and socially, rather than doing all the work to maintain connection. Challenge doesn't mean rejecting her or playing games. It means engaging in a way that inspires respect and curiosity. Stoicism reinforces the principle of challenge. By focusing on your own values, goals, and self-mastery, you remain consistent and confident regardless of external responses. This naturally creates tension and intrigue because your energy is controlled and independent. Women are instinctively drawn to men who operate from internal certainty, not dependency. Recognize early signs of lost challenge. She stops initiating, becomes less curious, or seems disengaged in conversations. Respond by reasserting your value, maintain personal goals, engage in meaningful interactions, and enforce your boundaries. A man who presents himself as self-contained, ambitious, and unpredictable in the right ways becomes impossible to ignore. Mastering the balance between approachability and challenge is essential. When you engage intentionally, protect your energy, and maintain personal standards, attraction remains high, curiosity grows, and the likelihood of ghosting decreases. Challenge keeps a woman invested and ensures your interactions remain dynamic, exciting, and psychologically compelling. 4. Overdependence. Have you ever felt like the more you give, the more distant she becomes? One of the most common psychological reasons a woman ghosts is overdependence. When a man relies too heavily on her for validation, attention, or emotional stability, it creates subconscious pressure and tension. Women are naturally drawn to men who are independent, self-contained, and confident. Overdependence signals neediness, which erodes attraction over time. Overdependence often shows early in text patterns and communication. Men who respond instantly to every message, seek constant reassurance, or over-explain their feelings unconsciously convey low self-value. While attention and communication are important, excessive availability sends the message that your happiness depends on her responses. This creates imbalance. Women instinctively recognize this and may disengage to protect their own emotional energy, sometimes leading to ghosting. Emotional over-reliance is another critical factor. Men who expect women to manage their moods, validate their insecurities, or calm their anxieties create unintentional emotional pressure. Women are wired to respond to stability, not volatility. When a man's emotional state fluctuates depending on her attention or affection, it can feel draining. Ghosting in these cases is not personal. It's her way of maintaining her own balance and avoiding emotional overwhelm. Physical and lifestyle dependence also contributes. Men who sacrifice personal goals, social life, or routines to cater exclusively to her attention reduce their own perceived value. Independence is magnetic. When a man prioritizes his life, growth, and ambitions, it communicates confidence and strength. Overdependence signals the opposite, predictability and vulnerability, leading to disengagement. The solution is to cultivate self-reliance, protect your energy, maintain boundaries, and focus on your own goals and interests. Be intentional in how you invest attention. Your presence should feel valuable and earned, not automatic or desperate. This balance encourages her to invest in return and keeps the dynamic engaging. Stoicism supports this approach perfectly. Focus on controlling what is within your power, your actions, responses, and personal growth, while detaching from outcomes or external validation. A man who operates from internal certainty is naturally magnetic. Women are drawn to men who are self-contained because they provide emotional stability, confidence, and security. Signs of overdependence include constantly seeking her approval, overreacting to delayed responses, or prioritizing her over your own life consistently. Correct these by reestablishing personal routines, enforcing boundaries, and limiting excessive communication. By doing so, you shift the dynamic from pressure to engagement, restoring attraction and mutual respect. Mastering independence prevents ghosting and maintains psychological intrigue. A woman stays invested when she senses that your energy, time, and attention are valuable. Overdependence removes tension, reduces engagement, and often results in sudden disappearance. Protecting your independence is one of the most effective ways to sustain attraction and avoid being ghosted. 5. Mismatched values. Have you ever been ghosted and wondered, was it something I did? Sometimes it's not about behavior or mistakes, it's about mismatched values. One of the less obvious psychological reasons women disappear is realizing consciously or unconsciously that her core values and your lifestyle, goals, or mindset don't align. Attraction can fade quickly when compatibility is low, and ghosting becomes an easy escape. Values guide long-term compatibility. Women naturally look for men whose ambitions, ethics, priorities, and emotional approach align with theirs. Differences in lifestyle, financial goals, social behavior, or relationship expectations can create subtle tension. Early on, she might ignore these gaps, but over time, they accumulate into discomfort or disinterest. Ghosting often happens when she decides the mismatch is too significant to address directly. Communication patterns reveal mismatched values. If a woman notices repeated disagreements about priorities, personal boundaries, or long-term vision, her subconscious may flag the relationship as incompatible. Even minor differences, like contrasting social energy, family dynamics, or emotional expression, can gradually reduce engagement. Women are particularly sensitive to these signals because they think in terms of long-term security and alignment. Perceived lifestyle misalignment contributes as well. Men who seem inconsistent, unambitious, or uninterested in self-improvement often trigger subconscious concerns about future compatibility. Even if the man is attractive or charismatic, her mind evaluates whether this connection can sustain her long-term needs. When it can't, disappearing may feel easier than confrontation. The solution is clarity and alignment. From the beginning, establish your values, boundaries, and lifestyle. Show her what you prioritize, your goals, routines, and ambitions through consistent actions. This helps her understand who you are and whether compatibility exists. If a mismatch arises, ghosting is less likely because expectations are clear, reducing misunderstandings. Stoicism also plays a role here. Focus on living according to your principles and values rather than trying to conform to someone else's expectations. By committing to self-mastery and integrity, you naturally attract women who align with your life. Women are drawn to men who demonstrate consistency and authenticity because it signals long-term reliability and emotional stability. Early detection is critical. Subtle signs of mismatch include hesitation in making plans, vague future discussions, or lack of enthusiasm about shared goals. Addressing these issues calmly and assertively can prevent disengagement. If a woman cannot align with your values, recognize it without frustration. Ghosting is often her way of resolving a mismatch she cannot tolerate. Mastering value alignment prevents ghosting by ensuring mutual investment and understanding. Women remain interested when they perceive shared priorities, compatible goals, and complementary emotional approaches. Misalignment erodes attraction silently, but clarity, consistency, and integrity preserve engagement, respect, and connection. 6. Timing and life circumstances. Have you ever been ghosted and felt like you did everything right, yet she still disappeared? One psychological reason for ghosting is timing and life circumstances. Attraction and connection are only part of the equation. Sometimes external factors, stress, career demands, personal growth, or unresolved past experiences interfere with a woman's ability to invest in a relationship. Ghosting often reflects her reality, not a deficiency in you. Life circumstances can create emotional unavailability. Women juggling career pressures, family obligations, or personal challenges may withdraw without explanation because they they don't have the bandwidth to engage. Even if she's attracted, the mental and emotional energy required for connection may feel overwhelming. Ghosting becomes a coping mechanism, a way to maintain control without confrontation. Timing also plays a critical role. A woman may be interested, but if it doesn't align with her personal goals, moving, education, or emotional readiness, she may disappear to avoid conflict or guilt. Attraction alone cannot overcome misaligned timing. External pressures influence decisions more than most men realize. Recognizing that ghosting can stem from timing prevents unnecessary self-blame and overanalysis. Past experiences and emotional baggage can exacerbate the effect. Women carrying unresolved trauma, failed relationships, or trust issues may instinctively retreat when intensity increases. Even small challenges or perceived vulnerability can trigger self-protective withdrawal. In these cases, ghosting is less about you and more about her need to manage internal conflict. The solution is perspective and patience. Understand that ghosting often reflects circumstances outside your control. Avoid overanalyzing or blaming yourself. Focus instead on your own growth, maintaining boundaries, and living a purposeful life. This approach ensures that even if timing or circumstances prevent engagement, your energy remains protected and your confidence intact. Stoicism reinforces this approach. Concentrate on what you can control, your actions, mindset, and personal development, rather than external variables like her schedule, emotional capacity, or timing. Accepting external factors without judgment reduces stress, increases clarity, and positions you as someone who remains grounded regardless of outcomes. Early signs of timing or circumstantial issues include inconsistent communication, vague future discussions, or sporadic engagement. Recognize these patterns without panic or overcompensation. Maintaining your own energy and focus on personal priorities allows natural alignment with women whose timing matches yours. Mastering awareness of timing and circumstances prevents unnecessary frustration. Ghosting is often situational, not a reflection of your worth. Women remain engaged when their emotional bandwidth, life situation, and personal goals align with the connection. By respecting these factors and maintaining your independence, you minimize the risk of sudden disappearance and ensure that your energy is invested in mutually compatible relationships. 7. Failure to maintain mystery. Have you ever noticed that women sometimes seem engaged at first, but gradually their interest wanes until they vanish without explanation? One of the most overlooked psychological reasons for ghosting is the failure to maintain mystery. Attraction thrives on intrigue, curiosity, and unpredictability. When a man becomes too predictable, too available, or reveals everything about himself too quickly, the spark can fade, and ghosting becomes an easy exit. Mystery isn't about being dishonest or playing games. It's about pacing self-disclosure, maintaining independence, and preserving energy. When a man shares all his thoughts, routines, and emotions immediately, there's no room for curiosity or exploration. Women are naturally drawn to men who have depth, complexity, and a life outside the connection. Losing this sense of intrigue can make interactions feel mundane, causing her to disengage subconsciously. Overavailability is another factor. Men who respond instantly, accept every invitation, or constantly prioritize her over their own pursuits reduce tension and challenge. Paradoxically, too much presence can decrease interest. Mystery maintains a subtle psychological tension that keeps her mentally and emotionally invested. Women are wired to invest in relationships where there is a balance between engagement and challenge, excitement and stability. Maintaining mystery also intersects with confidence and independence. Men who have goals, hobbies, and social lives separate from the relationship naturally retain intrigue. They don't need constant validation or reassurance, which signals strength and self-possession. When a man loses independence or becomes fully absorbed in her attention, the dynamic shifts from engaging to predictable, reducing attraction. Stoic principles support the idea of maintaining mystery. Focus on controlling your own actions, energy, and growth, rather than trying to manage her perception. By living a full life and remaining composed, you project depth, stability, and confidence. Women are instinctively attracted to men whose lives are rich and autonomous because it communicates value and emotional security. Signs that you're losing mystery include overly detailed communication, constant availability, or oversharing personal struggles too early. Correct this by pacing self-disclosure, protecting your energy, and maintaining a sense of independence. Engage with intention, allowing her to discover aspects of your personality gradually. This balance keeps curiosity alive, sustains attraction, and reduces the likelihood of ghosting. Mastering mystery is about creating dynamic tension. It's about showing value without over-explaining, maintaining independence, and balancing availability with scarcity. Women remain engaged when they feel challenged, intrigued, and invested mentally and emotionally. Failing to maintain mystery removes that spark, making disappearance more likely. By preserving intrigue, balancing engagement, and prioritizing self-possession, you ensure that your energy remains valuable. Ghosting occurs less frequently because women remain curious, invested, and psychologically engaged. Mystery isn't about manipulation. It's about maintaining natural magnetism through independence, confidence, and controlled energy. Ghosting isn't always about rejection or something you did wrong. Most of the time, it reflects a woman's internal state, psychological patterns or external circumstances, emotional overwhelm, loss of attraction, lack of challenge, overdependence, mismatched values, timing, or fading mystery. Understanding these reasons gives you clarity, reduces frustration, and helps you protect your energy. The key is self-mastery. Maintain independence, pace your energy, preserve intrigue, and focus on your personal growth. When you operate from confidence, consistency, and emotional control, you naturally sustain attraction and minimize the risk of being ghosted.